would have thunk it? All of a sudden, the mainstream media have caught on that maybe Disney is not good at making Star Wars, even though the entire article is basically making excuses about why Disney is not good at making Star Wars. And here to talk to me about that is our good friend Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing all right. So when did the media become a bunch of misogynist bigots? Because I've been told that if you criticize Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars or Disney Star Wars, that you're just a right-wing troll.
Well, that is the rumor going around, and they do everything in their power not to criticize them. But Disney's stewardship of Star Wars has been so bad, and they've hurt the brand to such a degree that you really just can't sugarcoat it anymore. Even trying to be nice about it, you do have to admit Disney Star Wars, by and by, for the most part, is a failure.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I saw that they just released the images for the Skeleton Crew action figures. Like they're actually Hasbro's actually doing a line of Black Series Skeleton Crew, and oh man, is it just embarrassing? There's one character that looks cool. There's like there's a Shistavanan Wolfman pirate, like space pirate looking guy that I'm like, I'll buy that one. That one looks neat, but all the main characters, it's like, why are you getting these? By the way, at all of my local stores now, there is just a glut of Ahsoka figures. So like, there's a bunch of Shin Hadis, not a lot of Baylan Skulls. People are buying Baylan Skulls, so I think collectors are like, yeah, he can fit into my collection, but the other characters, like, nobody cares. Nobody's buying Hera. Nobody's buying any of these.
I think nobody cares is the big reason. This is what the Hollywood Reporter had to say. So let's run through Disney's Star Wars legacy to date, from The Force Awakens to The Acolyte, and see what conclusions might be drawn, because several aspects of the company's track record admittedly look shaky. A 5-movie franchise that was halted after its box office returns trended the wrong direction, 6 live-action TV shows, just one of which has had a multi-season hit, a startling number of projects put into development and then abandoned, like Starships on Rocket, and one wildly ambitious role-play hotel that closed after little more than a year. It raises a question: is Disney kind of bad at Star Wars? And I would say that's an understatement. I would say Disney is absolutely atrocious at Star Wars at this point.
I would say that it's been proven that Disney is kind of atrocious at everything right now, but particularly they've never been able to acquire something, it seems. They've never been able to, take something in acquisition and be able to maintain it as the brand that they bought. For example, let me tell you, I was talking to a friend of mine who worked at Lucasfilm, and he said just before the sale, George Lucas was talking to them about how Star Wars was kind of washed. He's like, the fan base is really hard to please. We put out movies and so there was a feeling that he couldn't do any right by the fans. But inexplicably, he said, we're on track to make $10 billion this year in merch. And it looks like we'll probably end up closer to 14 billion in merchandise. And he goes, so for a fan base that seems like they can't be pleased, they're still buying. And he goes, and it's inexplicable to me. And I think that what he didn't understand is I think he had been in the bubble for so long, is that fans had criticisms of the prequels. Fans had criticisms of the things that they were doing, but ultimately fans still had a passion for the universe. I have my criticisms of the prequels, but I still by and large liked a lot of things in them. And I especially liked a lot of the ancillary product around them. For example, Dark Horse was doing great comic books. Their book partners were doing great books based on the Clone Wars. They were really fleshing it out. So it made me like the movies more. And I think that's not what George maybe didn't understand. Fast forward now to Star Wars, and Disney was crowing that they made $1 billion in merchandise last year on Star Wars. So you went from 14 billion and now it's down to 1 billion, and you're touting that as a success. No, you've killed the golden goose. That's still a lot of money, but you've lost more on Star Wars than you've made.
Alienating an entire fan base, and I think you're right. A lot of the things around Star Wars were still cool. The comic books by Dark Horse were still really high quality, and they were doing original stuff as well as add-ons to things that already existed. You had really good video games that were coming out basically every single year that got people excited about Star Wars once again, going to different time periods within the Star Wars expanded universe. You had novels that were always coming out, and for the most part, they were going out there finding the right talent. George himself and Lucasfilm had a good handle on what to include in their universe and what not to include in their universe. And once Disney got their hands on it, they just decided it didn't matter what Star Wars fans wanted anymore. And that's how you go from $14 billion in ancillary merch sales down to $1 billion. And considering yourself pretty lucky, because you know that you basically destroyed the golden goose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unbelievable what Kathleen Kennedy has done to Star Wars, how it will be studied, assuming civilization continues on in the future, assuming that Hollywood still has a future, assuming that everything doesn't go down in flames. It will be studied just what a colossal failure Kathleen Kennedy was as a studio head. It's incredible how they took this thing that was a perpetual money machine, and all you had to do was put it in the hands of this incompetent egomaniac and watch it all fall apart.
The Hollywood Reporter does try to make some excuses for her. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, who has produced some of the most beloved and iconic movies in cinema history, has overseen the Star Wars franchise since 2012. Any mention of Kennedy amid a look at the Star Wars track record cannot be separated from the fact that she has been the target of hateful and ugly fandom attacks. South Park also piled on her by mocking her in a recent episode. Still, Kennedy shouldn't be considered immune from criticism. And one thing recent political headlines have shown is the myth, the only I can do it leadership.
I'm just tired of this idea of like hateful and ugly fandom attacks. You attack the fans. Like fans will be critical, but then when you come out and you attack them because they don't like the product you're putting out, when you attack your customers, guess what? When you throw shit over the wall, shit's going to get thrown back at you. And there's more people on the other side of the wall. So boo-hoo, I'm so sorry that Kathleen Kennedy, in all of her fortune that she's amassed over the years by attaching herself to the coattails of more talented men, I'm so sorry that she's getting pushback on the fact that she's churned out absolute crap, that her leadership is garbage, her vision is garbage, she doesn't understand Star Wars, she tried to transform it into something that it's not, and now I'm supposed to feel bad for her that the fandom has turned on her. No. Go piss up a rope. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this argument. I'm tired of these people coming out and being like, you should just swallow the slop. We as customers are not required to just take what we get and say, thank you, may I have another. You are asking us to spend our hard-earned money on your product, on your movies, watch your shows, buy your merch. You're asking us to do that? You need to give us what we want.
And she has gone out there and struck deals for production of Star Wars movies with so many really talented people like Lord and Miller, who obviously was supposed to do Solo, didn't get to finish that. We were supposed to get one from the Benioff and whoever guy from Game of Thrones. We were supposed to get a Kevin Feige one. All these people have come in, signed on the dotted line, and then none of their movies got made. She got attached to one filmmaker that she thought had a real good vision for Star Wars. Rian fucking Johnson, the one dude who's done more damage to the brand than any other creative person in the history of Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't think that can be disputed. I mean, The Last Jedi is the shatter point for Star Wars fandom. It divided the fan base, and then they kept going in the direction that was for people that weren't fans of Star Wars. And you've seen the fan base shrink. You've seen it shrink. You can't sell Star Wars merch anymore. It's a hard sell. It used to be the brand of brands. People used to be excited about it. You used to never see Darth Vader hanging on the shelves. You used to never see Boba Fett hanging on the shelves. My Target's got a bunch of Darth Vaders that nobody's bought because nobody cares anymore. We saw the bins of Boba Fett's on sale for $1. Here are these $25 figures and they're marked down to $1. That never used to happen with Boba Fett. I used to collect just Boba Fett stuff, in addition to all my Star Wars stuff. I would buy everything Boba Fett, and I had a particular focus on that. I can't look at that character anymore. I just don't care about this anymore because you've killed it. You've severed my connection to it. And once you have severed the fans' connection to the IP, once you've made them indifferent, because they were passionate when they were complaining, now they're just pointing and laughing because they're indifferent. Put
another company basically out of business. Toys R Us got destroyed because of their contract with Lucasfilm.
Yeah, Toys R Us went under. It looks like Ubisoft is going to go under because that Star Wars game and largely, because of the DEI stuff that they put into that and the Sweet Baby ink that they were putting into Assassin's Creed that apparently they're now desperately trying to strip out and delaying everything. But it doesn't look like they're going to survive, or they're at least going to be acquired by another company. Right now, signing up to be a licensor on Star Wars or a licensee is the kiss of death. Don't spend your money on Star Wars license, like companies that do licensing. Don't do it because Disney still charges too high a premium for a brand that they have made mostly irrelevant.
And what's crazy is they are doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on all the stuff that have driven Star Wars fans away, that have decreased the merch revenues and all that stuff. Latest example, Sister was a transgender clone trooper who encountered Anakin Skywalker early on during the Clone Wars. He was struck by the clone's decision to acknowledge Sister's uniqueness, acknowledging her gender identity with the assigned name Sister, She served as a member of the 7th Sky Corps, working with Anakin and Obi-Wan on several missions. Anakin gave an affirming response to sister, who wasn't sure how the Jedi would react to her. The Jedi are all about transcending things, Anakin told her wryly. I don't think we can complain if you've transcended gender. They cannot get out of their own way. They're putting that stuff in to books for children.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid and it's so on the nose.
That's not a galaxy far, far away.
No. And then
that's Burbank, California.
They've got the trans flag colors on the armor.
Yes. It's embarrassing to be a Star Wars fan.
How to take your... I'm so glad that I never was a tattoo guy, because I would have had like the Mandalorian, or the Bantha skull tattoo is something I probably would have got. And now I'd have to walk around with that thing on me and people thinking that I love Star Wars. Wanted to talk to me about, did you see The Acolyte?
We watched 5 episodes.
Congratulations, everybody. You've wasted your lives and your fandom thanks to Disney.
Well, we have, Aaron. You've invested heavily in Star Wars. It kind of sucks.
It does kind of suck. I don't look at it with the same fondness anymore. It's like I try to, it's like I've got some little things. Like I've got, I had some clone troopers that I was messing around with and mixing and matching parts and customizing recently, because I got them like super cheap. When
are you going to paint the transgender flag on it?
Oh yeah, that's never going to happen. Man, no. Can you imagine like, can you imagine Timu Morrison as a woman?
Can you imagine a bigger fundamental misunderstanding of the fucking Empire?
No. And on top of that, can you imagine thinking that you've done something important by having the genocide? Like you need his seal of approval on your lifestyle in order to feel good about yourself in real life. You need a fictional character who ends up murdering children and killing entire planets. You need that affirmation in your life. What absolute ridiculous, what an absolute clown show this world has become.
You hope it's going to get better, but then obviously you see stuff like that and you're like, oh, it's truly not going to get better. It's probably just going to be this.
It's like I say, if you want to tell a trans story or you want to have a trans character, you just need to know what your audience is. And the audience for that is not the Star Wars audience. So you're just going to drive more people away to appeal to a very, very, very small demographic. And some properties, we say it all the time on here, is there needs, like you and I are fine with stories for everybody. We've often said that, like, hey, there should be a comic for everybody. If this is your interest and you think that it's an underserved audience and you want to reach out to that audience, you should do that book. And we've got no issue with that. The issue is when you take all of these like niche kind of fandoms or niche audiences and you try to make it mainstream. All you do is drive away the mainstream. So if you're doing these larger properties, these are not the place for it. These are, if you need mainstream appeal, you need to have mainstream appeal. You can't put niche appeal in there and then go, where did everybody go? And be surprised by it.
It's like when Gail Simone was out there bragging, like, I spent 15 years ripping down these tent poles. And you're like, hey, fuckhead, without tent poles, the tent doesn't stay up. Yeah. That means you collapse the industry. What are you thinking? Mm-hmm. You need tent poles like Star Wars. You need your tent poles like your MCU and stuff like that. You don't destroy it by filling it with a bunch of niche fucking ideas that, for the most part, turn off 80% of fucking people.
Yeah. You drove away your audience. Congratulations. You chipped away the tent poles, and now the tent is on the ground. And, it's blowing around, and it just goes wherever it is that the wind blows.
Flapping in the wind.
And nobody really cares. It's just flotsam now. Good job. You really did it. You really did it. You hope you're proud. Good job.
If you were enjoying this conversation between Aaron and myself, we actually talked about his experience at New York Comic Con for 30 minutes already, and we're going to go for at least another hour on the Geek Fix this week. If you're interested in the Geek Fix, it's exclusive to Think Turtle Patreon. There's a link in the video description. The Aaron's Never-Ending Sparrow's Never-Ending Christmas Tree. Totally screwed that one up. That is the tier for you, and of course, the Doc is Right tier is also up there if you want all the podcasts. Hope to see you there very, very soon.